Hey guys, we are back again, and I apologize because it feels like I'm just bringing you more and more bad news by the day. So, this is a follow up to our video from earlier this week when we talked about that bill that the Senate had passed and sent back to the House. We have received news that the House has passed that, and President Trump is expected to sign it on July 4th, meaning that the things in that bill are expected to become law pretty quick here. So naturally, the next question that everyone has is, how and when is this going to affect us? And that is a very valid question. And that's the one that I'm hoping to answer today because I heard from a lot of you in our last stream that you were concerned about the dates and we didn't have that information yet. So I want to make sure that we're able to get that to you today. So as we dive in here, I just want to know, do you support this legislation? I've actually heard some mixed feedback from some of you. I've been surprised to hear from so many who do support pieces of it. So as always, I love to see your input in the comments. Kind of helps guide our future videos and the kind of content that we're creating. So alrighty, so this is what happened. The House passed the bill in a very, very narrow margin. There were 218 in favor and 214 opposed, which, that's very, very slim, but it did pass. And it is the Senate version of the bill that passed. And like I said, it's expected to be signed into the law on July 4th, which in my head seemed like a long while from now. But then I looked at the calendar and it's already July 3rd. So I'm not really sure how that happened. But yes, this is appearing to be very imminent. So let's go over what's in it and more importantly, when it takes effect, because that's something that we missed last time. So for those of you who don't know, the Thrifty Food Plan is what your SNAP benefits are based on. That's the base calculation that they use when they're figuring out how much people should get in SNAP benefits. And it's supposed to represent the cost to feed a family of four, including two parents, one male, one female, and a child between the ages of 6 and 8, and a child between the ages of 9 and 11. I thought that was an interesting distinction because as someone who's actively raising teenagers, they eat a lot more than young kids do. So among all of the other issues with the Thrifty Food Plan, there's that as well. Now, the reason I'm telling you about all of this, and I know it doesn't sound very interesting on the surface, but the reason I'm telling you about it is because the Senate bill does something interesting, and it enshrines the 2021 USDA Thrifty Food Plan as the official baseline model. Now, that doesn't sound exciting, but I was relieved to see that because I remember when that model went into place. And everybody was expected to get about $12 to $16 more per person per month. And one of the things that I've been reading as I've been following the news on this is a lot of lawmakers that were pushing back and saying that that particular update shouldn't have been allowed. It shouldn't have been a thing. It shouldn't count. And so I've been afraid that they were going to retcon that and send everyone back to the level that they were at before. So I am very grateful to see that that is actually going to be kept. We're not going to see declines from that. That at least is comforting and hopefully some measure of silver lining here as we consider all of the other negative things that we are going to be discussing in this today. So one thing that it does, it gives us this, but then it immediately also says that further reevaluations of the Thrifty Food Plan are restricted. They're authorizing one, but not until October of 2027. And it also says that it has to be cost neutral and they can't increase the amount of SNAP as a result of that evaluation. So a little bit of good news in the short term, pretty bad news in the long term there on that point. And then, of course, they're also talking about restricting, like COLA increases, things like that. But it is based on the same model as it was before. So that at least is a relief. Now, one interesting thing that I don't think I addressed in the previous stream that we did on Monday, you have to understand on Monday they had just passed that bill. And now I've had a couple of days to dig into the details, compare the Senate version and the House version, look at the original Food Stamps Act, all these things. Now, all of that being said, you need to remember I'm not an attorney. I'm just a researcher. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a social worker. I don't work for the government, so on and so forth. But I did have more time to compare all of these things. And one thing I noticed, and you can see the screenshot of the Senate bill here, is that they are putting a cap on large households. So historically, if you had SNAP benefits, you'd get a certain amount for one person, a certain amount if you had 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, on and on. They usually cap the chart at 8 people in your household, and then they say for each additional person, add this much, right? And you see that not only in SNAP, but in LIHEAP and all sorts of other things too. When they're talking about income qualifiers, usually the chart goes to 8 and then it's at a certain amount per person. Well, for SNAP benefits under the Senate bill, they have this interesting caveat here where it says for a household of 9 persons or more, an additional 22% per person, which additional percentage shall not total more than 200%. And that effectively, to me, in my reading of that, looks like they're capping benefits for big households. Now, I imagine that households of that size are not particularly common, but it is something I want you to be aware of. Another thing I want to say before we move on to the next slide that breaks this down a little better is I checked 2 or 3 times and I could not find any mention of when these SNAP rules are going to go into effect. I've heard reports in other news outlets that it'll be in 2026, but I wasn't able to verify that in the language of the bill itself. There are other sections with the SNAP rules that go into effect on October 1st. But generally, if there isn't a date specifying when it goes into effect, often that's immediate upon the passing and signing of the bill. So I am definitely nervous about that, and I will be following up with USDA to see if I can get more clarification on that for you. Now, the way that this looks in practice, I took the percentages that they listed here, and then I compared them to the current price of the Thrifty Food Plan to compare what this kind of payout would look like compared to what they have currently authorized for this year. So this chart that I'm showing you on this page is something that I put together based on household size, the percentage that was listed, the amount allotted in the Senate bill compared to what they're currently offering, and then the difference between the two. So you can see, because of the wording of this, where it says that the percentage shall not exceed more than 200%, mathematically, what I came to is if you have more than 18 household members, you're not going to get benefits beyond that 18th member. It looks like they will not be paying out additional benefits for the 19th person or beyond. Now, I imagine that not very many people here have that many people in their household. So I don't know how many people this will actually affect. I know at one point in my life, I had 13 members in my household. That was not a time when we were getting SNAP, though. But yes. Oh, I do see some questions here about people saying, that they only get $23 a month. Sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on it on the chat while I also follow my slides. These are the maximum allowable amounts. So this is the absolute most for that household size. Anyway. Okay, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second, got a little distracted. Let's go ahead and move on. So another major concern that we've had is about work requirements. And we've talked about this in depth, and I know it's terrifying for a lot of people. So I want to make sure that we address this as well. In the blue here, you'll see how it compares to the current rules and the House version of the rules and so on. So the work requirements do go into effect, but there are exceptions for children under 18, which is the same as before, seniors over age 65, which is a 10-year increase because it was previously age 55 and over that were exempt from that, and now it's seniors over age 65. They have the same exemption for those that are medically certified as physically or mentally unfit for employment. They also have an exception for parents or household members who care for dependent children under the age of 14. You know what? I just realized I never made the slides bigger for you guys. I try to do that so that it's easier for you to see. Let's see, is this better? Or yeah, maybe we'll just leave it like that since that's what I clicked. Usually I go there. I don't know. You guys can tell me what you like better. Yeah, so parents or household members who care for dependent children under age 14. Now, the current law that is currently in effect before the passage of this did not specify an age gap. It just said for dependent children. In the House version, it set the age limit to 7. So the Senate bill raises that age cap to 14 instead of 7, which I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate. There's the same exception for pregnant women that has always been there. There's also, those otherwise exempt under subsection D2. I didn't have time to look at what that meant. I apologize. I made a note for myself to look into that. And there was so much going on today that I forgot to circle back to that. They also have, you can see here in the text, this is the text of the Senate version that I screenshotted for you. There are new exceptions for Indian or urban Indians and California Indians as described under certain clauses of other laws. So if you qualify for either of those things, then you may be able to qualify for those work exceptions in SNAP as well. Now, it is worth noting, I had a lot of people asking previously about the exceptions for homeless, veterans, foster kids aging out of foster care, and so on. That was going to be extended until October 1st, 2030 under the House version of the bill, but it does appear that that clause was stricken out of the Senate version and is not going to be there. So it does appear that those waivers will be discontinued, unfortunately. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted by the chat again. Okay. Yes. So it also looks like Alaska and Hawaii are going to be eligible for special enforcement waivers until December 31st of 2028. I assume that this was added in there to appease that Alaskan senator that was not willing, that had expressed hesitation on that bill. Sorry, I don't know if you guys know this. I work from home and I have 5 kids, so I can hear stuff going on out in the back room, and that's part of what's distracting me. I do apologize. Yeah, okay. Sorry, still not good at lives. The standard utility allowance. Now, this is something that really was interesting to me when I saw this. So if you've watched our other videos about how to get more SNAP, you know I like to talk a lot about the deductions, because what they do is they look at how much income is coming into your household, and then they adjust that with these deductions, and then the money that's left over is what they base your SNAP allotment on. So deductions are a lot more important than a lot of people think, and I don't think people pay attention to them enough. So when I saw this, it was a little bit alarming. The standard utility allowance is going to be limited to households that have an elderly or disabled family member in them. It looks like, based on my reading of it, that the standard utility allowance may not be available to other households anymore, which will, of course, take away that deduction, which increases the amount of income that counts against you. And that's, never ends well for people. I also saw a clause in there that energy bills that are paid by a third party will only be counted as a household expense for people with elderly or disabled household members too. And the wording of that particular clause is a little complicated. So, for example, if a charity comes in and pays your energy bill on your behalf, it can sometimes count like you paid it in offsetting your income. And it looks like it's only going to count that way if you have an elderly and disabled household member in your household. They also specified right here that internet bills will no longer be counted toward the shelter expenses either. Now, all of these things seem really minor. In a couple of slides from now, I apologize, it's not better organized. I have a screenshot from, I think it was the New York Times, that broke out each line of the bill and how much it would either cost or save the government. So even though these sound like little things, I believe, you know what, here, let me just jump ahead really quick so I can get you that information. Yeah, the internet expense restriction, just taking that out of the shelter deduction, is supposed to help them save $11 billion. And I don't know exactly how all this math happened, but that sounds like $11 billion that families in need aren't going to be getting. So you can see even these minor changes are going to have huge and lasting impacts for people who rely on these benefits. Oh, geez, where was I? Okay, there we go. All right, so another thing that happens is the Senate bill also reduces the amount of cost sharing for states with high error rates. The House had originally said that it would be from 15 to 25%, which organizations like CBPP, like their estimates of how that would affect states was just catastrophic. It was terrible. But the Senate bill has reduced those quotas to 5 to 15%, which is a lot more manageable. And those are supposed to begin in sometime between 2028 to 2030, depending on what exceptions and waivers the states may qualify for. There's some complicated calculations in there, and I didn't think you guys would find it that interesting. They also establish a zero tolerance policy for overpayments in the SNAP program. And we knew that this was coming. They've been pushing for this for a long time. They've been calling it the Snap Back Inaccurate SNAP Payments Act or whatever, because they want to push states and people to have to repay whenever there's overpayments. So it doesn't look like that's as bad as it was originally proposed to be, but that definitely was in there as well. All right, and then there is this, which affects people with mixed immigration statuses in their household. So to sum up everything that's on this slide, because it is a little complicated, unless, okay, let me find a better way to phrase that. If there is a member of your household who is not a U.S. citizen or a U.S. national, they have to meet specific requirements to be eligible for SNAP. If they are not eligible for SNAP benefits, the rest of the household can still receive those benefits, but the income and resources of the ineligible family member or family members will still count against the household overall in calculating how many benefits they receive. So hopefully that was a clear explanation, because sometimes these things are really hard to read. And like I said previously, for those of us who are just joining us, I am not a lawyer, I am just a researcher. So important to keep that in mind. Okay, yeah, and then here again is that slide from the New York Times with the breakdowns of what's going to be saved. If you haven't looked at that post yet, they went through every line in the bill, and it was a very interesting thing to skim over. I did see someone in the chat here that I wanted to answer really quick. Let me see if I can hop back and find this comment. You guys are doing great at chatting, and I love that. Oh my gosh, they didn't fix the way that it jumps around. Okay. Rather than find it, I'll just tell you. Somebody commented that they looked at the New York Times article and they didn't see anything about LIHEAP or Section 8 in there. And I can confirm that for you. I looked over it 3 or 4 times. I looked through both the House version and the Senate version of the bill. I dug through so many things trying to find any indication of how this may affect those programs. And ultimately, it looks like LIHEAP is not addressed in this legislation at all, which, I mean, they want to axe it, so I think that's a good thing, that it's not in there. Not a good thing that they want to axe it, but I mean, if it's not in there, then hopefully there's still hope for LIHEAP, because I know how important that is. I also didn't see anything about Section 8 in here, which is interesting because I was pretty sure I'd heard something about Section 8 being included in it previously, but I couldn't find any mention of that either. So my assumption is that those 2 programs are still safe for now. We'll see what happens. It feels like things are changing by the day, guys, and I hate constantly coming on here and bringing you bad news. I want to make sure that you're informed and empowered and able to plan as much as you're able and hopefully get ahead of any of these changes that are going to affect you guys. But I know this year has been hard for a lot of us. So with that, let's talk about what's going on with Medicaid. Sorry, I try not to get too emotional or opinionated on here, but when I was reading through what's going on in this bill, the first few things listed under Medicaid really kind of bugged me, because what they're doing is they're delaying these new programs. Oh dear, sorry. I'm just going to turn off my phone so people quit calling me. Okay. So what they're doing is basically delaying rules that were meant to streamline Medicaid and make it easier to use. So they're going to be delaying a rule that would have made it easier and more automatic for people to enroll in Medicare savings programs, many of which you're eligible for if you're low income. And they were just going to streamline that and make it easier to enroll in those. They're going to delay that rule until at least September 30th of 2034, which is just extending more red tape, which, I mean, it doesn't appear to change anybody's eligibility for it. It just makes it harder for you to get. They're also doing the same thing with a rule that would have made it easier to apply for and move between programs like Medicaid, CHIP, different health programs. They're going to be postponing that rule until at least September 30th of 2034 as well. And again, that was just designed to make it easier to use this program. Some other changes that are coming to Medicaid, and we've put the deadlines on here for you. They're going to be checking the Social Security death master file quarterly to make sure that if someone dies, they're removed from Medicaid. That rule is supposed to go into effect on January 1st of 2027. They're also going to be checking to make sure that deceased providers and suppliers are also disenrolled. That should hopefully help cut down on fraud. We've seen a lot of fraudulent billings in the last couple of years in Medicare, especially, but also in Medicaid. So I think that's the purpose of this one. And that goes into effect January 1st of 2028. Starting October 1st of 2029, they're going to implement some new procedures and things to help verify addresses more frequently, to make sure people are where they say they are and they're not getting benefits in different states and things like that. It also looks like Medicaid enrollees are going to have to recertify their eligibility every 6 months, which is going to create a huge paperwork issue for the states. That's a lot of paperwork to have to go through twice a year. And it looks like that particular rule goes into effect 180 days after the signing of this legislation. So you can see a lot of these changes that are coming are going to be staggered in. It's hopefully not going to all hit at once. But yeah, wanted to break it all down so you knew what to expect. So again, there's more rules about immigrants in here and who's eligible for Medicaid. They also have an interesting rule that says that new Medicaid projects have to be budget neutral. So we've seen states proposing different projects with Medicaid, giving out air conditioners and different things of that nature that were really helpful. But anything that they want to do with Medicaid now has to be cost neutral. So we'll probably not see those popping up as readily as they did before. And then we get back to more work requirements, right? That seems to be a pretty consistent theme throughout all of this legislation, is they're really pushing those work initiatives. So the new work requirements for Medicaid are expected to go into effect not later than December 31st, 2026. This is huge because it says not later than. I've seen lots and lots of outlets saying, oh, well, they don't go into effect until the end of 2026. But when you read the wording in the bill, it seems to me, again, not a lawyer, but it seems to me, it says not later than, and it talks about states enacting them sooner. So we don't know exactly when these will hit. We just know that they will hit before the end of next year. And once they do begin, adults that are affected by these rules will need to meet at least one of these many bullet points. So you could work 80 hours a month, volunteer 80 hours a month. Sorry about my typos, guys. Anyway. You can participate in a work program 80 hours a month. You can enroll in an education program at least half time. You can mix and match one of these 4 things to meet that 80-hour requirement. Or you can earn an income that is equal to at least 80 hours of minimum wage a month, or be a seasonal worker with an average monthly income over the preceding 6 months that is equal to at least minimum wage at 80 hours a month. So if you're a seasonal worker, they're going to average out that income to see if you're qualifying for that. But those are what they want to see people doing to get Medicaid. Now, there are all sorts of exceptions, and it was a little confusing to read through these because they were listed in different places, but it looks like anyone under the age of 19 is exempt. If you're eligible or enrolled in Medicare Part A or enrolled in Part B, it looks like you're going to be exempt from that as well. They have exemptions for recent inmates, Indians, urban Indians, or California Indians, parents, guardians, caretakers, or family caregivers to a child 13 years of age or younger, as well as if you're caring for a disabled family member. Veterans with 100% disability ratings obviously aren't going to be expected to go out and work. And then they also have a category for people that they consider medically frail or those with special needs. So this can include being blind, disabled, having a substance abuse disorder, a disabling mental disorder, a serious or complex medical condition, or a disability that impairs your activities of daily living, is how they defined that. And then it also looks like if you have an addiction, but you're participating in drug or alcohol treatment, inmates and pregnant women, postpartum women as well, should have an exception. And then it lists some optional exceptions as well that it looks like states might be able to implement as well. Another major change that they're bringing to Medicaid is this idea of cost sharing for some low-income adults. So this is going to affect people who receive Medicaid through the ACA expansion and have an income that is above the poverty line. So, and this is supposed to go into effect on October 1st of 2028. So when this happens, they still will not be able to charge you anything for primary care, mental health care, substance abuse treatment, emergency care, pregnancy care, services at rural or low-income clinics. Those are still not going to have an out-of-pocket cost to you at the time of service. However, other providers, they are supposed to charge you something up to $35 per item. The total cost cannot exceed 5% of the family income per month or quarter, based on my reading of that. So at least there's that protection there. But I know those extra costs can add up very quickly when you're experiencing medical challenges. I've been through some interesting chronic health challenges with my own family in the last year, and it is astounding how fast those medical bills can stack up. Okay. We had somebody asking about this on our last chat, so I'm hopeful that the person who was asking is here, because we are going to talk about the changes to home and community-based care. These are supposed to start on July 1st, 2028, so we still have a couple of years before these changes are going to take effect. But when they do happen, states will be able to offer more flexible access to home and community-based care. So things like in-home care aides, adult daycare, things that aren't as extreme as a nursing home or assisted living, but are still there to help people who need that extra assistance. A lot of the information in that section seemed to be left up to the states to determine the details, but the date for that is supposed to be July 1st of 2028. Okay, now it looks like we're transitioning to the Medicare portion of the conversation. And this is just strictly, again, going back to the immigration changes, right? It says within 18 months, Medicare benefits will be terminated for those who don't meet certain citizenship requirements. You will need to be either a citizen or national of the United States or meet, I think it's the same criteria that we had for Medicaid and SNAP as far as what is allowed there. Oh, good. Sorry, I just looked over and I saw this in the chat. I'm so glad that you're here. Yeah, definitely been digging in to try to get those answers for you today. And if you have more clarifying questions, let me know. I do write down the things you guys ask me, and I try to do my best to get all those answered. So, okay, yeah, so that was it for Medicare. Now we're going to talk about student loans. And as someone who is still paying on student loans and owes more than I did when I left school, like this whole conversation stresses me out. Okay. So starting July 1st of 2026, graduate students will not be able to take out PLUS loans, and there will be new loan limits. And these will be prorated for anyone who's attending less than full-time. Now, I don't know if anybody here on this channel is attending to go to school. I know a lot of us on this channel owe student loans, but you can see all of the things here. Colleges can also choose to cap loan amounts. Sorry, I'm just looking at the time and I see that we've been going way longer than I expected, so I'm trying to move a little quicker. There's new limits for parent borrowers. Students that are already enrolled and borrowing before July 1st of 2026 can get a temporary exception. They'll either be allowed to finish their program under the current rules or keep borrowing for 3 more years. If their program ends before those 3 years, it's not like they can continue on, like that's going to be the end of it. Okay, yes. And this is interesting. Also starting July 1st of 2026, colleges and universities are prohibited from using direct loans for programs that don't have an acceptable earnings potential. So programs that aren't churning out income for people aren't going to be something that you can use student loans on anymore, which is an interesting change. Okay. Yes, before July 1st of 2026, the current repayment options will still apply for borrowers with older loans. So if you're on one of these income-driven repayment plans like I am, we should be safe until July 1st of 2026. But then starting at that time, we have to pick a new plan, which is either going to be the standard fixed plan or the new repayment assistance plan. And at that time, oh, no, sorry. I misread that. I apologize. I will, please forget what I just said. Starting July 1st of 2026, new borrowers, so this is people taking out new loans, will have to pick one of those two things. And then July 1st of 2028, all borrowers, so including those of us already on this, will have to switch to another plan. So, and if you don't choose, you can't get out of it by just not choosing. The government will just put you on one depending on what they think you're eligible for. So for those of us who currently have these plans, we do have a little bit more time before those changes are going to take effect, but they are eventually going to happen. Now let's talk about what this new repayment assistance plan is. because I've heard a lot of people talking about this, and I haven't heard a lot of the specifics. And as someone who's probably going to be put on that plan, it stresses me out a little bit. So the monthly payments are a percentage of your income minus $50 per dependent. There is no more $0 a month payments. So right now, under the different income contingent repayment plans, a lot of people have $0 a month student loan payments. That won't be a thing anymore. Once all this is switched over, there's going to be a minimum $10 a month payment with forgiveness after 360 payments. If and then that payment is first applied to interest, and then from there, and it says low income borrowers can get their interest waived if your payment doesn't fully cover that. And there are some conditions in there under which it may also help pay down your principal as well. They're also going to get rid of the unemployment and economic hardship deferments for new loans that are issued after July of 2027. And they are going to have a new forbearance thing, but it's going to be limited to a 9-month span in a 24-month period. And there's going to be really specific criteria for that. So it's going to be a lot harder to avoid student loan payments if you owe those. They are going to allow people to rehabilitate their loans twice now. It used to be only once. Rehabilitation is when you take a loan that's in default and you make it current, and they erase that default history from your credit score. You used to be able to rehabilitate them without paying anything. Now you're going to have to pay at least $10 to rehabilitate those. They did clarify that PSLF forgiveness, the new plan will still count toward that. And there's some changes to the Pell Grant as well. They also have a new Pell Grant program, which, I've got some teenagers that are going to be, aging into the workforce here soon. So this is interesting. These will become available July 1st of next year, and they will pay for short non-traditional training programs that traditional Pell wouldn't cover. So this is for short programs that are 8 to 15 weeks long, that have a proven track record of good outcomes, and that lead to high skill, high wage, or in-demand jobs. So anyway, there's that. And then, of course, we also have some other things in there as well. That new $6,000 senior tax deduction goes into effect, it looks like, for tax year 2025. The Senate bill made some changes to the no tax on tips rule, capping that at $25,000 in tips. Also puts a high-end income cap on who can qualify that. So only people who earn less than a certain amount can get that. And it also specifies that that rule only applies to occupations where tips were usually received before December of 2024. And I appreciate that so much, because one of the big concerns with the no tax on tips things was that it was just going to make tipping culture explode. And then everybody would be asking for tips because, not that they aren't already, but that it would get worse. And so having that caveat in there should help protect us all against that expanding. The Senate bill also caps the no tax on overtime to people who earn less than $150,000 per person or $300,000 per couple. There's also a measure in there that stops jobless millionaires from being able to claim unemployment. And it also contains a permanent enhancement to the low-income housing tax credit, which helps builders build more low-income housing, which goodness knows we need substantially more low-income housing. So that's good to see. All right, I think that wraps up my slides here. So we do have some resources here for you. You can see those on the screen here. If you don't already have disability benefits, our sponsor injury claims can help you get Social Security disability, so you can check that out here. For student loan help, our sponsor Care Connect USA has a great student aid relief line. If you are concerned about any of the things we talked about that can help you figure out your options there, you can just give them a call at that number. And then, of course, our sponsor chapter Medicare is amazing at helping you navigate your options if you're eligible for Medicare, especially if you're dual eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid. That gets really confusing, and a lot of people end up spending more money than they need. So yeah, if that's you, go ahead and give chapter a call here. So just leave those resources on screen here, and let's dive in and answer some questions if you guys have them. I am going to warn you, I can only see about the most recent 3 to 4 comments at a time, and when I try to scroll around, my screen jumps all over the place. So I will do my, oh, you know what? If I open this tab, I can see more comments. So maybe we can make this work today. We'll see. But yeah, if you have any questions for me, feel free to drop those, and I will try to look through what I can see here. So, oh, that's so sad. I really hope that you don't lose your Snapchat. That would be terrible. I know, like, bracing for the worst, but yeah. Let's see. I'm not actually seeing a lot of comments. You guys are having a great conversation. Vanessa says, I came in too late. Is this bill bad for low income people? Short answer, yes. In a lot of ways, there's going to be some cuts. They're estimating that 11 to 12 million people will probably lose their Medicaid. There's other cuts, sneaky cuts that could affect SNAP benefits and other things as well. You are welcome to rewind the video to see the whole breakdown. Okay, Lisa says, I asked you a question earlier. I apologize, Lisa. If I scroll, my screen starts jumping all over the place and then it all starts to break. So if you wouldn't mind just copying and pasting that comment down here for me, that would be excellent. I would love to get that answered for you. Let's see. MQ says, does anybody here know if Atticus is a good company to help hire to apply for disability? So I've had some good conversations with the people at Atticus. They were having some technical issues the last time I spoke with them, but I'm pretty sure that was more on the, not on the end that would affect you. I know our sponsor injury claims up here does functionally the same thing that Atticus does. They're all just disability attorneys. They don't charge you anything up front. They just help you. They only get paid if you win. So they're really motivated to help you with that. So definitely check that out. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Kitty Cat says, will I have to pay $35? I'm on disability and dual advantage. That is a great question. So it depends, because that copay situation appears to be for people who got their Medicaid under the Expansion Act. So it sounds like dual advantage is probably dual eligible. I would recommend talking to Chapter, because they can help you figure all of that out. They are my go-to Medicare experts, because that program is so confusing. Anyway, yeah, I would definitely go ahead and give them a call. Sorry, guys, I have psoriasis, so periodically I just try to peel my skin off. It's fine. Let's see. Nomad says, is a Pell the same as FAFSA? So yes, when you fill out the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, it awards you the Pell grant through that. That is the application for Pell. So yeah. Okay, so just to recap, Amanda's asking about Section 8 housing and low-income housing. Those things were not addressed in the bill that was passed through Congress, other than that there is a permanent expansion to the low-income housing tax credit, which encourages developers to build more low-income housing. So it didn't appear to address anything in Section 8 or anything like that at all. Vanessa says, do people have to apply twice a year for Medicaid now? You don't have to apply twice a year, but they will be calling you for those recertification interviews. They'll be asking you for the income information. It's essentially a reapplication, but they call it a recertification because they're just trying to make sure that all that information is the same and you're still eligible for those benefits. Okay, so Mohammed is asking, when will this new law officially take effect? That is a really fun question, because I'm assuming you tuned in after we went through all the deadlines. Different sections of the bill are coming into effect at different times. Some of it goes into effect pretty much immediately. Some of it doesn't go into effect until 2034. So I would recommend that you go back to the beginning when we were going through the slides and take a look to get the answers to those questions. Linda's asking if we went through SNAP info already. Yep, I covered SNAP at the very beginning. So if you just rewind to that point, you should be able to get that information. Okay, lots of people on here are saying that I am fear-mongering. And if that is the vibe that you're getting from me, I really apologize. I try not to freak you guys out on this channel. I don't want to cause you more agony or stress. I know so much of this is already very stressful, so. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up with the questions here. So the questions that I'm answering today, I'm trying to stay on focus with the bill that was just passed through Congress. There are all sorts of rumors flying around about what's going to happen with Medicare and what's going to happen with Section 8. And I'm sure that we are not done seeing the end of the changes, right? I've been running low income relief now for, I look at my calendar, 12 years. And it seems to me, and this could just be because I'm getting older and more worn out, but it seems to me like we have just had an unprecedented rate of updates, right? I'm seeing new press releases all the time, and I'm trying to convey that information to you as completely as possible, hopefully in a way that's not fear-mongering, because that's not my objective. I just want you guys to be prepared. But yeah, as far as the changes to things like Section 8 or Medicare that weren't included in this bill, I'll address those in another video. They weren't addressed in this bill. So, I really appreciate all of you that are saying that I'm not fear-mongering. I appreciate that because, I mean, honestly, I have anxiety, but I would never want my stress to become your stress. I genuinely just want to help you guys out. So, oh, you guys are wonderful. So, let's see. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are all wonderful. Do we have any more questions? I'm trying to find questions in here, and it's insane how much this jumps around. I probably need to find a new streaming tool or talk to these guys as tech support or something, because this is a little crazy. As far as SSDI goes, nothing Social Security changed in this bill. Because I found out when I did the stream on Monday that there's a rule in place that they can't address Social Security in a budget reconciliation bill. So the process that they used so that they only had to have a very thin majority of votes also made it so that they couldn't address, I think, all the things that they wanted to. So hopefully that answers that question. We can do another video about SSDI. In fact, if you guys ever want me, like, our channel is big enough now that if you guys have an expert you want me to bring in, like, I know we've had Ari from Chapter on here to answer Medicare questions because he's actually licensed and knows way more than I do about Medicare stuff. I'm happy to reach out and try to coordinate interviews with other experts or other people that can help get some of your questions answered a little better. I genuinely just want to help you guys. Someone's asking when I'll be coming back live again. So I am trying to do these more often. I'll be fully honest with you. I struggle being live. You can tell I have a lot more ums and ahs and pauses. And usually our fantastic video editor, Mia, takes what I record in my studio and makes it better for you guys. So you don't have to put up with all of this chaos. But I'm working on doing more lives. And I'm actually hoping to get to the point where we can be live multiple times a week with you guys, because I feel like, especially with the changes that are coming, we need to be more diligent about getting more helpful information out to you guys. There's so much that we have found over the years that is, first of all, changing, but also relatively unknown, right? And we want to get that information out to you guys. So, yeah, let's see. Okay, yeah, we want some SSDI videos. I can make that happen. I'm always looking for video ideas, by the way. Like, that's so helpful to me because, yeah, especially with the way things went after my brother, I've been having a hard time. Let's see. Well, I see. Okay, question. Did they change Obamacare? So, I mean, I didn't see when I was going through the law, like, a big subheading that was like, Affordable Care Act, we're changing that. What I did see was, like, they're starting to roll out copays for people who got Medicaid under expansions and things like that. So I feel like it was probably worded a little bit more subtly than I picked up on. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of changes happening to a lot of different things. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this comment really quick because Kat says, the good news is my local blackberry patch is going to have a bumper crop this season. So first of all, super jealous. I don't live in an area that has blackberries anymore, and I miss that terribly. But yeah, so there are all sorts of food programs out there, guys, that go way beyond SNAP. And we've talked about them in other videos. And when I get off of here, maybe I will, maybe I'll see if I can pin that other video in a comment for you guys. But there are all sorts of other food programs. Gleaning programs are huge. I have saved so much money being connected to my local gleaning clubs. Being able to go in and, pick things directly from farms is huge. So yeah, anyway, just wanted to highlight that as another resource. So the date that the SNAP work requirements will take place. If I remember right, let me jump back here in my slides. Sorry, guys, there are so many slides. Yes, got it. So that was the one that I didn't have dates on, I believe. Was that right? Yeah. I can reach out to USDA. I annoy their press department all of the time. So I will definitely reach out and get clarification on any of the dates that we missed. And Deborah is asking, work requirements do not impact seniors, right? Yes. So as you know, a lot of these programs have radically different definitions of what constitutes a senior, right? So for some programs, if you're over 60 accounts, sometimes you have to be 62. For the work requirements that I saw in my review today, it looked like it's going to apply to everyone under the age of 65. So, yeah. Let's see. All right. So let's see. This is a great question. Where do you find the bill to read? So what I did is I went to congress.gov. And if you go to congress.gov, it'll show you all the different bills that are currently before both. And there's actually, today they're saying the most looked at bill is, obviously that big one that everyone's looking for. So there's a button right on congress.gov where you can click. And then it'll show you the summary page by default. And that's useful to a degree. But I went to the text tab and I looked at the one that was amended by the Senate and the one that was passed by the House. And I just compared those two. Again, for those just joining us, I am not a lawyer. I am not a politician. I am not a social worker. I do not work for the government. I am just a researcher who reads entirely too much stuff. So take that as it is. Let's see. All right. Oh boy. All right. Well, I actually have to get off of here because I have to go do a thing with my children. But I really appreciate you guys all being on here with me today. I will try to hop on here live again soon. And as always, if you have a tip that you want me to share, you can email that to tips@lowincomerelief.com. If you have something that you'd like me to cover, let us know in a comment. Our team tries to keep good tabs on those so that we're making the sort of content that you want to see. I imagine as we see the consequences of this bill roll out, things are predicted to get more difficult. And I will continue to try to find, more resources for you that can help fill in those gaps. And our team will still be here to help and support you no matter what happens. So you are wonderful. And I hope you have a very good day. And I will see you guys again soon.